WCC title hopes we're live here in Vegas at the Orleans Arena. We'll get you ready for the Cougs' big weekend and what it'll take for them to return to Provo, crowned champions.
Spring fever. The football team is back on the gridiron, and we talked to old friends about putting their helmets back on.
And off and running, the baseball team is setting records and turning heads.
I'm Blake Dorton.
And I'm Skylar Wilcox. What happens in Vegas makes for a pretty awesome sportscast. It's time for The Tube.
So did you go to that Gonzaga game on Saturday?
I did, Blake. We got there at 8 o'clock on Saturday.
Nice.
We stayed out in the line the whole day. What about you? Did you go?
Yeah, we camped since Friday morning.
Oh, my goodness. Well, fortunately for the team, they've moved on there in Vegas, but we will get there eventually, but we have to relive some of those painful memories. Rock members started camping out Thursday night for the biggest home game of the year. Thousands of Cougar crazies lined up outside the doors.
The Cougars are taking their hoop dreams on the road to hot and sunny Las Vegas and the WCC tournament. We sent our own team down to cover the men's and women's paths through the brackets. Coug2 reporter Aaron O'Sullivan is live in Las Vegas from the Orleans Arena. So Aaron, set the scene for us. What's the feeling like down there?
Blake, in one word, it's excitement. As you can see, the team is warming up behind me. They're getting ready for their big game. We've talked to both teams this week, and coaches and players say they understand the importance of this weekend and what it means for their big dance hopes. Let's tip things off with the men's NCAA tourney resume. Coug2 reporter Kenny Hutchings has been following the team all season. Kenny, how is BYU's bubble looking right now?
It's on the brink of bursting, Aaron. It is win to get in down here in Vegas for the Cougs, but no matter what happens over the next few days, it will definitely be a season to remember.
It's been a roller coaster ride all year long, and the highs have been a blast to watch.
BYU has its back against the wall, but that won't keep the Cougs from challenging for the title here in Vegas.
Kenny, the Cougars haven't won a conference tournament since 2001. Do you think they have a shot at cutting down the nets this year?
Absolutely. They beat every team in the conference at least once already this season, including top seeds Gonzaga and St. Mary's. They won't be afraid of anyone.
Thanks, Kenny. Cougars head into the tournament as the number 3 seed for the 3rd time. Let's break down this bracket. BYU starts the run for their first WCC tournament title against the number 6 Santa Clara Broncos. Second-ranked Gonzaga will likely be the Cougars' semifinal matchup. The Zags play against Portland. It'll be a battle if it's Cougar versus Bulldogs in the semis, since Gonzaga has made the finals every season since 1998. Pepperdine faces San Francisco, and the winner of LMU, San Diego, takes on the top-seeded St. Mary's. The men's team is still recovering from a tough loss at home to Gonzaga last Saturday, but seems there may be a silver lining in their setback. The Cougars are paired up against the Broncos team they've had no trouble lassoing since joining the conference. BYU and Santa Clara. Ground Ridge is definitely the guy to be watching for Santa Clara, but don't sleep on freshman Nick Emery. He's 37-23 up against the Broncos in the 2 matchups they've had this season. Now on the women's side, the Cougars hold the coveted number 1 spot on the bracket for the first time since joining the conference, and they're definitely ready to rebound after last week's disappointing loss against Gonzaga. Coug2 reporter Brandon Henson is here with me now. Brandon, is the pressure still on BYU after last week's 4th quarter collapse?
Aaron, Saturday wasn't the ideal finish the Cougars had in mind, but they're still the regular season champs. It was their first loss in almost 2 months, and that loss doesn't diminish what continues to be a historic season. Lexi Rideouch is the 3rd straight BYU player to win Conference Player of the Year, and Aaron, she looks determined to lead this team to their 3rd tournament title in 5 years.
Do you expect her to have an MVP performance in this tournament?
I think so. She only had 8 points in that Gonzaga loss. We all know that's not her typical numbers. I look for her to be the star in the Vegas spotlight and lead this team to a championship.
Thanks, Brandon. The women are about to face off with Pepperdine here in about 45 minutes, so let's see how these 2 teams match up against each other. The Waves were without their best scorer, Erica Agua-Mike, thanks to a quad contusion yesterday when they played Pacific. But the freshman duo of Paige Fesky and Yasmin Robinson-Bako were quick to pick up the slack. They connected here for the transition, assist, and layup. Together, they scored 39 of the team's 81 points, and Fesky went 4 of 6 from behind the arc. The Cougars won both meetings against the Waves during the regular season. When the 2 sides met in Provo, Lexi Rideouch led all scorers with 21 points. Kalani Purcell had a monster night with 16 points, 24 rebounds, and 8 assists. Fesky had another good game in Provo with 16 points. With the #1 seed, you're supposed to have the easiest trip to the final, but BYU only won by 5 points over the Waves at home back in January. So Pepperdine is no pushover. Cougs will really have to bring it back in the win to get it. So we know that Pepperdine and BYU have the two matchups for the quarterfinal rounds right now, but let's take a look at the rest of the bracket. With a win today, the Cougars will face off against Santa Clara. As much as the women's team may have wanted a rematch against the Gonzaga Bulldogs after that loss last week, it'll be the #4 Broncos instead. San Francisco squeezed past San Diego, and they'll face off against the winner between Loyola Marymount and St. Mary's. We'll be down here all weekend keeping those games and the men's games covered. This time of year is all about making that big run in March and knowing that every single team has a chance of making it to the big dance. Both Coug squads expect to return to Provo with strong runs down here in Vegas. Live in Orleans Arena, Aaron O'Sullivan, CougTube.
All right, Aaron, can't wait to hear who you picked to win the titles. We'll see you again later, a little bit later.
You know, pretty impressive. Day one of the WCC tournament, we've already had an upset with the Gonzaga women losing, so you never know what's going to happen.
That's huge, right? For the women. I mean, that's their biggest opponent probably.
It's incredible. Well, believe it or not, we do have some other sports stories to cover that aren't happening in Nevada. So when CougTube comes back, baseballers, the team is shining bright out on the diamond.
And back in action, spring football practice have some old favorites out making plays. We'll be right back.